Good evening, everyone. We're going to go through quick introductions before we start the financial plan public hearing. We have with us tonight Councillor Janine Boulanger.
Good evening.
We have Councillor Curtis Clayton.
Good evening, everyone.
We have Councillor Ron Mamchuk.
Good evening.
We have Councillor Shane Pelletier. Councillor Pelletier, we cannot hear you, but I'm sure you're with us. I see you. We have an administration CFO, Thomas Thompson.
Hello, everybody.
We have our CEO, Mitch Duval, who is not on screen, but he is in the boardroom. And we have our assistant CEO, Dominic Lemoine.
Good evening.
And we have myself, Mayor Chris Ewan. So we have a shared screen view here, I believe. I'm going to open up the public hearing for the financial plan at 7:12 p.m. Go ahead, Mr. CFO.
Thank you, His Worship. Good evening, members of council. Mitch Duval, CAO, Dominic Lemoine, Assistant CAO, ratepayers, and any media on the line. My name is Thomas Thompson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the RRM. I, along with Mitch Duval, will be presenting the financial plan presentation. Following the presentation, we will allow time for comments and a question and answer period. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. Please ensure you have a cup of coffee, water, or your favorite beverage for a refreshment handy. Our agenda tonight is a 5-point presentation. You'll see this slide 5 times. The highlighted red is the topic of the discussion. So our first topic is the objectives of this financial plan hearing and our financial plan process. Our objectives of this presentation is to provide an overview of the 2020 financial plan from both the operating and capital expenses. We want to inform you on what is going on in the RM for 2020 and provide a forum for feedback. The presentation will be available online. The noted directions are shown on the slide, and we will have the presentation up there later tomorrow. The financial planning process. This is a wheel of a process. This is not just, it's a continuous wheel, and it will occur each year, as well as there's other reporting requirements behind this that I provide reports to council on. So the process is continuous, like I stated. The first thing is we actually have the departments provide their preliminary budgets based on their current programming. They provide that to the CAO and CFO. We pull that together to one plan for operating and one plan for capital. And then they present to us how they're going to use that money and what they need that money for. From there, CAO and CFO make adjustments as necessary. We then pull together a session with council, provide them with scenarios on the budget plan, as well as comparison from actuals and budget versus 2019. From there, council makes the recommendation on what they'd like to see and how they'd like to see that rolled out. We then pull that information forward, myself, the CFO and the CAO, pull that together for a revised budget. That revised budget then goes back to council for a second review. And from there, they say yay or nay if we're on the track. And then once they give approval, we prepare a financial plan, the CFO and CAO. At that same time, the council has a first reading of that financial plan. And then from there, we move towards what we have tonight, which is the financial planning public hearing. From there, after this hearing, we'll take any comments or questions into consideration and provide changes to council for their consideration for second and third reading. The next agenda item that we're going to speak to is the assessment and mill rate, and our CAO, Mitch Duvall, will be talking about that.
Good evening, everybody. When it comes time to talk about budgets and taxation, there's a lot of terms out there that we use, and one of them, of course, is the municipal mill rate. Oh, and by the way, good evening and happy 150th to Manitoba on its birthday. There's a few terms, as I said. Municipal mill rate is one of the common ones that we use. And in order to explain that, there's a slide up here that tells you exactly how that's calculated. So basically, the municipal mill rate are determined by the amount of dollars that we are raising by taxation. And that is a controllable item that we set forward with council and staff. So those are dollars that we do have control and we play around with. The other portion, or the other formula that we use, is the total portion value of municipal assessment. Now that value is not something that the municipality can control. This number is produced by the provincial assessment department, and they're the ones who set that on a yearly basis. Every 2 years, the province does what's called a reassessment. So they go around and they reevaluate the properties every 2 years. This is good because they used to do it on every 4 years. So it did create some kind of large time period where values may fluctuate dramatically. So now what they've done is they do it every 2 years. The 2020 assessment is based on 2018 market values. So the assessment branch tries to find those comparative values and then come up with an assessment value for your property. The tricky part is trying to understand the timing out of it all, because 2020 taxation, which happens currently, is based on 2020 assessment that is finalized in the previous year, so in 2019. So if you figure your assessment is not proper, you need to do that a year in advance of your tax bill. So if we are talking for 2021 taxes, we need to look at the values for 2021 in the year 2020. And those values are determined again by the assessment branch, and if there's a change, you will receive a letter through the mail notifying the change. So that process, if you do not like the value of your reassessment, you have the opportunity to come forward to the Board of Revision and challenge those values. So for 2020, I'm a year ahead of myself here. For 2020, we've seen the assessment portion go up 10.3%, up to 548 million from 2019. And that's the number that we take into consideration when we're doing our budget for this year. This chart is just to show you the increase in the assessment values in the municipality from 2014 to 2020. And as I said, the reassessment values are done every 2 years. So 2014, 2016, 2018, and 2020 were reassessment years. And you could see by 2016, a big jump in 22.5%, 2018 in 6.0%, and in 2020 at that 10.3% mark. Other years do reflect an increase in assessment, and that is due to growth and new builds in the municipality, which is a healthy thing. This chart will basically show you two things: the change from 2019 to 2020 in assessment values, but it will also show you that the municipality is very heavy in residential assessment. Residential assessment account for almost 65% of the total portion value of the assessment of the municipality. The other big item that you will notice here is the increase in the assessment from 2019 to 2020 for the agricultural values that are out there, and that increased to 30.6%. So those are two very important trends that we need to keep in mind when we're doing our budgets. As part of the taxation process, there are basically three entities that lay out mill rates for your tax bill. There's the local school division, and we happen to have 5 of those in the municipality. There is also the provincial education support levy, which basically affects commercial properties. And council also has control on the municipal levy. The top 2 are items that we do not control. The bottom one is something that council and the municipality does control. And just to show you on your tax bill that where the, and it'd be a little bit hard to indicate here, but your tax bill is basically broken in 2 portions. The top middle portion is your municipal school taxes, and then the bottom portion is the school taxes. So, so when you look at both, please don't have a heart attack. It's not entirely our fault. As I said before, a lot of the items that we cannot control are the school taxes, and those are the dollars that are required from 2019 to 2020, and their percentage increase, and the school divisions that are asking for these dollars, along with the school division numbers that you could call if you're not happy with your taxes on that portion. Last but not least, as part of my presentation, I've always been telling people that when you look at your tax bill, the majority of it is school and education taxes relating to the municipal portion of it. And I've always said it was about a 60-40 split. And if you look at the numbers today, we're pretty close to that portion as well. So that concludes the portion of my, oh no, I might have another one. Oh yes, one more slide. Sorry, folks. The last slide that I do have is regarding the levies that are being proposed for the municipality. In 2019, we had a combination of 7.95 as a general municipal mill rate that appeared on your taxes. In 2020, the proposal is to keep the same mill rate at 7.95. That mill rate is then split up amongst all different categories, but our CFO, Mr. Thompson, will talk about these into further details right away. So with that, I turn it over to Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Duval. I will now switch over to the next slide. So our next agenda item is the operating revenue budget. I will speak to about what that encapsulates and includes, and show you that those informations in a little bit more detail. Our municipal revenue is 13.3 million, split in between these 5 items. Mostly the municipal taxes and grant and lieu of 40% that Mitch Duval presented. The other revenue is 4.7 million or 4.8 million, and that's 36%. I will provide a separate slide on what that entails. We have transfers from reserves. So these are monies drawing down the reserves. So that would be 2.7 million. And then we have a nominal surplus of 508,000, and that is for the St. Adolphe daycare. That's the remaining portion of the million, not an extra 508, but within the million that was set aside in 2019. And then a minor amount for grazing leases of 14,000. So other revenues. Other revenues is 4.8 million. Really, this is basically the bulk of it is new construction permitting. So that's through your taxes added, your permits and license and fines, and your development fees. And then the remainder is your sales and service. So that is your MPI fire claims, your management of your waste disposal sites, and your recreation programming. Your sales of goods is your sale of water to the utilities and any of the rental spaces as leases that we have within the RM. Your returns from investments are your investments and any penalties that we have brought in from those not paying their taxes on time. And then grants is really related to it's provincial and federal funding with a specific purpose. Typically, most of it is either a cost recovery basis and or related to a capital project. And last but not least, as you have, is a 63,000 for miscellaneous revenue, and that's really the catch-all for all items that don't fit within these categories. Municipal reserve balances. So in totality, we're looking at, we have an estimated opening balance of 5.7 million. We have forecasted revenue that we're bringing in of 1.5 million. And so our estimated adjusted balance for municipal reserve balances is 7.3 million. The next slide is utilities reserve balances. So in totality, for these four reserves, we have 828,000. The revenue that we're bringing in is the 91,000. So in the first slide was, or the second slide, where the table with the dedication fees, that was the municipal portion. This is the utility portion of those dedication fees. So then your estimated adjusted balance is 919,000. The fourth portion of this agenda is the operating budget expenses. So this is shown in either in department level programming. So in totality, just because we cannot show a deficit or a surplus, we have to show our revenues and our expenditures have to show the same balance. So our total is 13.3 million, and it's split out into these categories. The high level categories, the fiscal is the largest at 5.3 million. That is our tax discounts, our debentures, and our capital projects. The 2 million for transportation is the operations and maintenance of the road network assets for the municipality. The general government is the costs included are to the running the municipal office, so it's council and its administration. And then you have transfers to reserves. So this is our allocations to increase those reserves, not decrease them. And then the environmental health is the next largest figure, and that is related to the municipal disposal sites, waste collection, and the water system. So in detail, for the general government of 1.4 million, it's council's costs, the municipal office operations at 325 Main Street in St. Adolphe, and then it's also your legal, your assessment, taxation, election, and then those other operating expenses that relate to managing the RM. Protective services is 672,000 or 0.67 million. We don't pay anything for police department. We don't have a police department within the RM. We have a fire department. We have 3 halls within the areas of the RM. We also have an emergency measures coordinator that looks after the flood, 9/11, COVID, and then we also have the enforcement of our building, of our construction through our building inspections, enforcement through our bylaws, through our commissioners department, vendor, and then animal control. This is transportation at the 2.05 million, also known as Public Works. Most people in the RM consider it Public Works. It is. So it's really the expenses are included are the wages, equipment, and yard operation of the Public Works office, the maintenance and of our road network within the RM. So it's looking after the maintenance and upgrade or maintaining the sidewalks, boulevards, streets, and bridge work. It's the Public Works Department is mostly Mother Nature driven. So you have the snow and ice removal in the winter, and then you have the drainage issues in the spring, and then they keep the lights on. Environmental health is the 1.15 million, 1,150,000. That is where our waste collection as well as our disposal sites are. You also have a cost recovery program through that was given to us from the province, and that's where the cost for that program are within this department. And then you have the costs associated with the municipal water system. Those costs are around the 500,000 mark. Public health and environmental development, very small in grand consideration of the 3.3, but it's 42,000 on this slide. So it's a public health and welfare. It's contribution to senior support, as well as for the environmental development. It's the McDonald Reshot Planning District, and then money set aside for the review of the development plan bylaw. The economic development is 403,000 or 0.403 million. Really, this is a catch-all for province when we're providing for financial plan filling out. So it's the destruction of pests, the mosquito control and West Nile virus. We have the Red River Weed District within it. We have the watershed districts of the Seine Rat and LaSalle Redbone. They were normally in 2019, they were considered conservation districts. The province has changed them now to watershed districts. And then we also have our regional economic development granting. So we actually provide a grant to the Reshot CDC through this, as well as we have some tourism expenses. The recreation department is the other department located within the municipal office. It says 720,000. So it's the staffing in the municipal office, as well as the programming of individuals that are running our recreation programs. We provide operation grants for the community centers and halls, as well as we provide maintenance for recreational play spaces within this. So that includes your skating rinks, arenas, and playgrounds. We also provide a grant to the Reshot Library, and that money is then also receives provincial match funding on the amount of money that we provide to them. And then we have our fiscal services of 5.3 million and our reserve transfers of 1.5 million. So in your fiscal services, within our tax bylaw, you'll see, I believe it's the last page, you'll see percentages available for receiving discounts against your paying your taxes. That becomes an expense on our side of the books. So that's where those expenses are housed, is within fiscal services. We also have our debenture debt. I will provide a slide on exactly what that is. And then we have our capital, municipal, and utilities. And those will be explained in point 5 of the agenda. And then our 1.5 million is we're actually putting specific purpose revenue that we received back into those reserves for use at a later time. So all debentures, right now we have in totality of debentures of opening balance of 4.6 million. We have a yearly principal of 489,000, and our closing balance is 4,182,000. Right now, what we really want to focus in on is that we have one debenture coming off the books this year, another one, the Richelieu Water Services, coming off next year, and the IDC and St. Adolphe coming off the following year. So you're actually going to see our ability to fund larger projects. As these debentures come off, then we'll have our capital surplus available to allocate to projects, noting that capital projects will not just be municipal money. We always look at both provincial and federal funding when we're looking at larger projects. And finally, our capital budget with funding source. And this, what I'll explain these is it'll be almost the exact same explanation from the operating side, as it'll be set aside by department basis. And so it'll show, each slide will show an expenditure and how it's funded and the amount. So the capital budget for the general government is that we're planning to finalize the St. Adolphe daycare. This was on the first slide of the revenue that I showed with the pie chart, and it was the 508,000, and that is funded from nominal surplus. That is the remainder of that $1 million. So we spent 492,000 last year in 2019. This is the finalization of that $1 million. We're also, our fire chief from the fire department is wanting the lock boxes at all of the RM buildings. These are to be used by the fire department on an emergent basis, and that cost is 12,000, and that'll be coming from the general reserve. The capital budget for protective services. So in 2019, we had the rescue truck. We had budgeted from the fire department reserve, but we had not actioned, as we had gone through a full RFP process on speccing that out. We have now are in the process of ordering that item, and once this financial plan is processed, that'll be executed. So that rescue truck is 220,000. The province is moving towards a digital emergency services system. We've known that this was going to happen for a number of years. We were just waiting for the province to act on it. So it's all of the fire department services throughout the province, as well as the paramedic services, use these digital radios. So we now need to move to a digital system with our radios. So we need 55,000 to come from the fire department reserve. Two other equipment items that were requested by the fire chief was a turnout gear washing machine. It's a heavy duty washing machine for the gear, and it's 10,500 from the fire department reserve. They also need a tool for one of the fire stations, and that is a replacement of 11,500 coming from the fire department reserve. The final three items for the fire hall are the fire halls. So we're looking at improvements with each of the fire halls. This equipment will then be transferable to another fire hall, either with the St. Adolphe and Ile-des-Chênes. The St. Agathe is a new building. So those are gear racking and other miscellaneous equipment. St. Adolphe at 21,000, and the Ile de Chêne Fire Hall at 5,000. And then finally, the St. Agathe Fire Hall. This was a carryover from 2019 that didn't occur, and the fire department feels that they need to have this for 2020 and get it done. And it's coming from the fire department reserve. The last item, our emergency measures coordinator had put in a grant for flood funding, and it was deemed that it was accepted by the province, and so he will be purchasing water rescue equipment, and that's funded completely by the province at $38,350. The capital budget for transportation, there's 3 items for equipment that the Public Works Department has requested. We're actually looking at an operational efficiencies, effectiveness related to our granular hauling. So we're looking at purchasing one semi-truck and belly dump trailer for $232,000. That will be funded by both the general and machinery reserve. There is a 2020 one-ton truck with dump box that we'll be purchasing of $59,000 from the machinery reserve. And then also to help with our drainage needs, we are purchasing a Cartridge steamer for $17,000 coming out of our machinery reserve. Also, with our road reconstruction, we have actually had 3 projects that were part of 2019 that we are now going to be doing remedial work on them. So the Perron and Gagnon roads will be spending $23,000 from the gas tax reserve. The Barat and St. Agathe roads will be spending $44,000 from the general reserve. The St. Adolphe daycare parking lot, which most of you are driving by St. Adolphe and on Main Street, you're seeing the construction going on. So we're finalizing that. That's going to be a cost of $57,800 from the gas tax reserve. And then for 2020 for road reconstruction, we're looking at the Sorel Place Road at $195,000, funded by the general reserve. And then the Leonard Place Road reconstruction for $104,000 coming out of our gas tax reserve. Following on with the capital budget for transportation continued, Council has designated within this 2020 financial plan that their key focus has been on our active transportation network. So that is our pathways, our sidewalks, and those assets. So we have some remedial work to finish up in Papillon Pathway that's funded by the Hydro CDI of $9,500. And then we have 2020 new work. We have noted here that it's on a hamlet area. You could also consider this a ward area where the monies for Grand Point could be could be allocated to Howden and that. So within each of the ward areas for sidewalk and pathways, Council has decided $68,370 equally, and that is funded by the general mill rate. So that means that those projects for 2020 must be completed in 2020. These will not be carried over whatsoever. The Richat Water Services, we have 3 projects. This is really part of a 2019 and 2020 project of $3 million. What we had is we have a 1/3 funding sources, 1/3 from so 1/3 equally for each of the funding sources, and that is provincial government, federal government, and the municipality. So we have to have these done in 2020. So by the end of 2020. So we have the Richat Water Reservoir expansion of 30,000. We have the Richat 250 millimeter distribution main twinning. That piping is just a complementary piping for the expansion within the RM. of 1.3 million. And then we have finally the supplementary well sites upgrade, 480,000. Now, moving on to the utilities. So we have the St. Adolphe utility capital budget, the Main Street lift station upgrades, and the Lagoon Crossing and sewer truck dump pad. Both were 2019 projects that didn't occur. So they have now rolled over to 2020 and they will occur. So we had the 21,000 for the Main Street coming from the St. Adolphe Water and Sewer Reserve. We have the Lagoon Crossing and Sewer dump pad of 17,500, also coming from the St. Adolphe Water and Sewer Reserve. And then finally, we have, you're going to see this project in all three utilities. It's a wastewater treatment project. Each of them are going to come at 2,800 each. What it is a co-op project for a wastewater facility. The co-op project is with 4 other municipalities. Those municipalities are Niverville, Taché, and Hanover, and us. And the facility will be located in Rashad. This is a multi-year project, so you're going to see this for a few years within the capital plans. We're only expecting to spend 2,800 equally from the three utilities. The St. Agathe utility budget. So we have the wastewater treatment project, 2,800. We have a force main twinning study of 12,500. That's funded by the grant and St. Agathe Water and Sewer Reserve. And then we have a multi-smart pump station controller of 82,000, also coming from the reserve. This is an operational effectiveness and efficiencies. This is basically the water operator is going to be able to pull the app onto his phone and check how that pump station is doing and mitigate any changes with it with using the phone instead of having to go to that pump station directly. And then finally, for the capital budget, we have the Ile des Chênes utility. So we have the 2,800 for the wastewater treatment project, and then we have the potential for a land purchase for the lagoon of 585,000. That's funded from. It would be funded from the Ile des Chênes Water and Sewer Reserve, but if the water reserve does not have the funding capability to cover the estimated amount of 585,000, then that utility would have to take a loan out from the general reserve, and that would be paid back to the general reserve in a sequential amount and duration. So going back to give you a summary of capital budgeting by type. So our Rashad Water Services is 41,000. That is really the piping and the rest of that $3 million project. The equipment of 7%, that is really the Public Works Department's budget of the semi and the truck and the steamer. The 12% for the buildings, that is related to the lock boxes and the St. Adolphe daycare finalization. The roads is 9%. Those are the roads that were noted in the Public Works Transportation budget. The pathways, those are the pathways that council wants to get done within each of those hamlet areas and or wards. The fire department, 9%. And then the Ile des Chênes utility at 13%, which is primarily the land purchase. And then the St. Adolphe and St. Agathe utilities, St. Adolphe at 1% and St. Agathe utility at 2%. So looking at municipal reserve balances after the capital projects. So our adjusted balance previously with the revenue coming in, a totality for the municipal side is 7.3 million. We anticipate that we will be spending hydro operating dollars of 180,000 this year, as well as our capital projects of 2.2 million coming out of our reserves with an ending balance of estimated of 4.8 million. Our capital reserve balances for the utilities reserve balances for the capital after the capital projects for the utility side. So you had the 919,000 from the adjusted balance with the revenue. You have no operating, but we have the capital that we've noted here of 295,000. So our ending balances is still sitting estimated at 625,000. So some conclusion slide. Some important dates and information. This financial plan presentation will be available on our website, and it will be there tomorrow in a PDF format, not a PowerPoint, but a PDF format. Property taxes are due on or before 4:30 p.m. on Friday, October 30th, and then the Board of Revision that Mitch detailed in his assessment presentation will be in October 2020, and it'll be announced on our website, and it may be a webinar or it may be live within this, I'm hoping live within this sphere, within this room. I'd like to thank you for your attending, and I'd like to send it back to Mayor Ewan for his comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. CFO and Mr. CEO, for doing that presentation tonight. I'm going to open it up if there's any questions. I don't know if there's anyone in the boardroom or anyone in the council chambers or anyone online, but I will open it up for any questions from spectators, viewers, admin, or council at this time. And I'll give it one last call if there's any comments or questions from council, spectators, or administration at this time.
I have a question just regarding about the location of the wastewater treatment facility that was discussed. He said it was in Richard.
Yes.
That's correct? Okay.
The actual facility will be located in Rashad.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Anything else from any spectators, viewers? Okay, seeing none, I will close the hearing at 7:54 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. That adjourns tonight's meeting. We do not move or second this, and we do not vote on this. This will be brought to the next council meeting for council to discuss and move for the 2020 financial plan. Again, I appreciate you coming out. Happy 150th Manitoba, and we look forward to celebrating in the very near future. Stop.